All right, so good morning, everyone. We're continuing in our class on your role in the body. So today is the part three of Mercy Giver, this will be the last class on mercy giving today, and then Kevin has a class next week. Is that correct? You have the class time next week?
Yeah.
Okay, so we will not be doing this next week. Kevin, etc., will be teaching, and so we'll have a week off. And then we'll start talking about nurturing the week after that. So, I think most people in here have been in here. It is like extra quiet, it seems like. I don't know. There's like nothing running in the background. So, I think most of us have been through this before, so I'll just kind of have this up here. But again, the main point of this class is to spur on action in individuals. So, the point being, if you're not sure, so not to call it names or anything, but last week someone said that they didn't know what their gift was. And so, as he starts to raise his hand. So, that's part of this class is trying to figure out what your gift is. And gift is the combination of God-given talent and passion. What are you focused on? What are your desires? What are the things that you're naturally good at? And then taking that and then being able to practically apply it. So how do I then use this role in the body? How do I use this role to help others, etc.? Again, we're looking at this through three different lenses. We're going to start with the self-assessment lenses, right where we left off last week. And then we'll get into the second two, which is encouraging others, or how do we mentor others? How do we encourage others? And then finally, looking at it from the church body perspective. So I hope that we'll have some good discussion on that in just a little bit. I don't think it's actually up here. I did want to talk about the importance. There we go, findmyspiritualgift.com. So that's a test to start with. If you're not sure, again, it's just a starting point, 80 questions, there's 10 gifts, 8 questions per gift, all mixed together, sorts out your answers to them, puts what you're most likely at the top and what you're most likely not at the bottom. So I think diversity is really important, especially when we're talking about the body. So if you think about what in the Bible, it talks about the body and relating it to like the human body. So the hand is really important. Like, I think we would all agree with that. But if your entire body was made up of hands, that wouldn't be as effective as it is with everything else that we have. The hand can't see, the hand can't talk, the hand can't think, those types of things. We need other parts of the body, and all the parts need to work together in unity and together for the body to be able to grow and for it to be as effective as possible. So when we're talking about, like, mercy giving is probably my lowest one. I won't say probably, it is my lowest one. But we need all these different gifts in order for the body as a whole to be more effective. So I just think that diversity is really important. And I think we always went back to the analogy of, like, people who are detail-oriented versus people who aren't necessarily. And I think all of us can learn and work together. People who are detail-oriented can do the detail-oriented tasks, but occasionally might need to come up for air from the weeds and kind of look at the big picture, just as those who maybe are better at seeing the big picture occasionally need to get more into the details. So just one quick example of how we can all work together. But I do think mercy giving is extremely important, and let's go ahead and start talking about it. So again, we've gone over all this twice now, so I'm going to go through it pretty quickly. It comes from the list in Romans chapter 12, when it says, one who shows mercy with cheerfulness. Kevin had an interesting short discussion on why it says cheerfulness along with mercy last week, so we won't get into that. But if you missed it, you can go on our YouTube channel. I finally actually updated the YouTube channel and cut down all the sermons, and they're all in the sermon playlist, and Your Role in the Body is all in the Sunday morning class playlist. So if you've missed any of these, go back and check it out. Roughly 17% of the congregation, roughly 17% of people have this gift. So every congregation is different, clearly. You might have a congregation that's more heavy in teaching and evangelism. You might have a congregation that's more heavy in service and encouragement and mercy giving. So each congregation is different. But this actually is one of the highest of all the gifts. I actually looked at this last night and then I forgot. I think service is like 20% of people, according to his evaluation testing results. And then, so servant is 21%, mercy giver is 17%, shepherd, which is the passion of nurturing, is 16%. So this is actually one of the more common ones. which I would not have thought of that. But, so when we talk about mercy giving, in English, we're talking more about compassion, and so it just means to have sympathetic pity or concern for the sufferings or misfortunes of others. So that's the understanding piece, but the mercy giver is more focused then on that next step, which is more than just understanding. It goes beyond that, and the mercy giver is compelled to help people in that difficult situation. And we've discussed the last 2 weeks about how mercy givers in general are the most forgiving of all the gifts. And as I pointed out several times, your greatest strength is your greatest weakness. My people I work with probably are tired of hearing me say that because I say it all the time, but I think it's really true. So being really good at forgiving other people, which means, even if they got themselves into this tough situation, looking past that and saying, that's okay, let's help you just get out of it, instead of passing judgment on them, is extremely important and is a really good thing, and it's extremely important for those who have this gift. But that can also come with the downside if you're immature in your gift. So the last thing I would point out on here is there is some overlap with several of these gifts, but I would say that the difference is the focus. So a mercy giver probably does provide quite a bit of encouragement and probably provides quite a bit of serving others through various forms, but that's not the focus. So encouragers are focused on providing encouragement. So giving someone courage to continue to do something or to start something, and are more focused on person's growth. Servers are more focused on just the task at hand, but then mercy givers are focused on the physical and emotional well-being of that person. Here are all the passages. I think we went over in detail 2 weeks ago, and then we went over them at a higher level last week. So again, you can go back and check those out online if you want to hear that part. Maturity and immaturity, just real quick on this. Again, having that positive attitude and being able to reach out to people and being able to forgive others, even no matter what situation they're in. And then also, they are attentive, that last bullet point. Unless Hans has his, point. Oh, he does have the pointer. Shouldn't have. Attentive, there we go. Pointer war. So, I said pointer and it was like, boom, here it is. That's really funny. Okay, so they are attentive. So I would say maybe take a step back. I'm going to say this here in just a minute, but I think all of us, and the point was made last week, all of us want to be mercy givers. I think all of us want to be helpers. All of us want to do all these things, but some people are just better at them than others. So I think one of the things that would set apart the mercy giver, someone with that gift compared to someone who does not, is they're better at seeing the people who are in need, and then, again, taking that next step of taking action. So they're attentive, so they're paying attention to what's going on and to what people are going through and can see that better than people who don't have that gift do. But on the immature side, Fred has a comment. On the immature side, we talked last week, I said they are emotional. I probably should change that to they are overly emotional. Again, if you get too caught up in the emotions and being overly forgiving, then that can be a detriment if you're immature in your gift. Fred?
Just a little food for thought, and that is, there are times when I'm not bad at being merciful towards somebody outwardly. Inwardly, I keep saying to myself, how in the world did this guy get in this situation, and well, how stupid is he? You get my point, and that is,
Yeah.
Is mercy also internal as well as external? And I don't know if there's a scripture that might lead to that or not.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that, I wouldn't know that off the top of my head, but I would just say, I would assume that the person with this gift is probably better at that internally than people who are not, whereas those of us who probably are not those with the gift of mercy giving are gonna try to show it externally and probably still have a hard time internally unless you do some work on that.
That's why I said with cheerfulness.
So Kevin's pointing out, that's why it said to give mercy with cheerfulness. And so that kind of showing the attitude of it, right? Yeah.
Get your heart right with your mind.
Yes, agreed. He said get your heart right with your mind for anyone who can hear that. I can repeat things really well. All right, so here's the test, the questions. It's not the test, sorry. So here are the questions that if you would answer that like 6+ of these really describe you, you probably have the gift of mercy giving. So I identify with the forgotten of society. I have a desire to help those who are suffering. I emotionally feel a need to help those in poverty, the physically sick, or the lonely. I gravitate towards the outcast of society. People view me as being gentle. I hurt when knowing others are in pain. I seek to understand the emotional swings of those going through painful experiences. I become emotionally connected in other people's lives. And then finally, a plug for the test as well. So, if we're looking through all these, a lot of stuff about emotions in there, right? So, would anyone in here say that this really describes them? Hans does. Anyone else? Colleen? So if you think this really describes you, let's go through some of these questions. It doesn't have to, these don't have to be super long answers. Colleen said she thought it really described her. So, not to put you on the spot, but to put you on the spot. So kind of how would you answer do you just want to do one at a time? So how would you view the world? That's a very blanket statement, but like as you're kind of just going through life, what are the things you're looking at? What is your attitude? Those types of things.
I don't know that I can even talk about it.
Maybe the next question. So what gives you energy? Like,
I become at the hospital, people told me I was too forgiving.
mm-hmm.
And I just feel for people. And for those who have wronged me or somebody else, I say I'm sorry. And I'm sorry that you're going through this. I'm sorry that you lost somebody. I can't remember all of those that were up there. I am over-emotional about it, as you can tell. And I cry easily. And now does that make me, I don't know, but I just feel there's pain.
Gotcha. So you're just better able to, you just, I guess, kind of naturally then are feeling the things that other people are going through. That's interesting. Because that is so foreign to me, that's really interesting that you can kind of, so like, are you just able to like, if you're just talking to someone, can just really tell really quickly that like, they're trying to hide, like, not they're trying to hide something. They're going through a difficult time and are just trying to mask that for the interaction?
Yes,
Okay.
I think I can.
Hans, you have a microphone?
I do.
I got more questions. Don't worry. Go ahead, Hans.
So, yes, I have this gift, but it happened over time. It just happened over time. But even as a kid, I cared about people and the situations we were in, and saw how my mother, my aunt, got us through. Well, God got us through them. How do I view the world? Broken. It is beautiful. It's an awesome creation, and yet it in and of itself is groaning, waiting for Christ to come again. So when I look at a person who is smiling the most, they may be the most broken. Now, it doesn't mean they're not happy. There are happy people out there, don't get me wrong. I know a couple of them, I think. But I view the world as sinful, needing Christ. But that also comes through time and through Scripture and through that sort of thing. And what gives you the energy, it's not your own. You may think it is. You may talk like that just because that's a cultural way of speaking. But if anybody is truly honest as a Christian, when they're talking or somebody says, hey, what gives you energy? I make jokes about adrenal flow. I know it's Christ. I know it is because I couldn't do it on my own. And yes, I am very emotionally attached to people who are suffering. And I do pray for them. I'm doing this test right now just because I feel bad. I'm multitasking, don't tell anybody. But I do engage. Now there are times, especially if you have family still, you need to disengage so that you don't spend all of your energy on said persons, not person. It's usually, there's 1,000 people out there that you go by almost every day. But as long as you're taking care of your family, then, and they understand that my wife understands that I care for people, and physically do things for them also as well as talk. But
Gotcha. So here's the next question. I'll give you a second to start thinking about it. But part of, I think, the reason why I thought it was important to ask these questions is to learn from people who have that gift. So again, there are so many different directions we can take this class and what we can learn from it. But one of the things that we can learn, I think, is for all of us to try to grow in each gift. That is not the primary point, but to have a better understanding of how each person thinks can help us to learn more. And then also, I spoke to diversity at the beginning. So learning other people's viewpoints and going, oh, I didn't think of it that way, or you see the world way differently than I do, and that's important, right? So that all of us can then, again, be more effective because we're all seeing the world differently. Yes, Kathy. Yep, go ahead.
Excuse me. I was going to say that I love the illustration of the body and how it applies to the church. Because when you hit your hand or your finger, you bring it in close to you, and then you go bend over, and then your mouth may talk too. So, I mean, it's an automatic response. And so as the body, we need to have an automatic response and so close to each other that we understand and can see what somebody else is going through.
Yes, that's a really good point, and that's part of why I think the Mercy Giver gift is really important, because they're better at seeing that than others of us. So how would you say you're active in your gift? So like, how does that play out during the day? Like, do you just do you seek out people that are going through a difficult time? Do they just kind of naturally just appear in your life? Like, how does that work?
Since we have moved to Manhattan, I don't know people. In Scott City, being an EMT, being a nurse, we knew people, and I can say that, I know I keep going back to the hospital, but that was my life, and my children, and my husband, but it would get this sounds terrible, frustrating, because I would get assigned those patients that were very hard to deal with. And there was one day I said, why? I can't do this. This is just, some of them are mean and hurting so much and so many things. And I would be told, you can deal with them. You can feel it, and we need that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
it is interesting, in the book, he does point out that nurses are usually very high in mercy giving. So, very interesting. You have anything to add, Hans?
oh, sure.
That was way too general of a question for you. No, just kidding.
So let me tell you a short, quick story. Only a few people know. On Friday, I spent the last almost 2 hours of my day at the police station interpreting for a guy that works with us, and his car was stolen at 12 a.m. approximate that morning. And so these are guys that I do work with. I do a lot of interpretation, and yet they feel compelled to come to me because they know I'm open. We have talked about Iglesia de Cristo and those
Honduras,
things in
yeah.
Honduras, right? And so because you talk about things, and especially as nursing, I'm assuming you're en face. You're with the person. You are seeing them in their desperate need, and he felt like he could come to ask me, at 1:45 in the afternoon, if you could please take me to the police station to go ahead and fill out the information so his insurance company could do it. Now, that was actually as long as it took, and my boss doesn't even know about it yet, so that'll be really interesting. But one of the better times I've had at helping somebody in desperate need, because his documents, passport, everything were in that car as well. So he felt compelled, and you put yourself out there, even though he says, Hans, que dice, blah, blah, what are we doing work? He knew I could do that, but then he comes to me when he really needs that help. And it's because you put yourself out there.
Gotcha.
Whether you know it or not, if you do have that gift, you're open for business, That's how it works.
Gotcha. Interesting. All right, next question. Tracy has a comment.
Well, I'm going to just lay it out and be real, drop the mask here. A story here. And I have a question for you, Hans and Colleen. So I encountered a woman in a restroom at a public place. Troy and I had an agenda. We had a list, like we had places we needed to go. We were running errands. You got to do this, got to do this, go to this, and this interrupted that. So I'll preface with that. But when she came out of the stall, something was wrong. So I said, "Are you okay?" That was easy. But then she proceeded to tell me. So did I really want to know what was okay, if she was okay or not? Yeah, I did. So she had an asthma attack, and so then she proceeded to tell me something about, she didn't know that she could walk the rest of the way home and that kind of thing. And so I went into the stall, she left. And to be honest with you, what went through my mind, I'm just revealing, that I don't have this gift. I thought, I hope I do not cross paths with her walking through the rest of the store. Because I was like, we've got places to be, we're on a mission here. And I knew he was outside waiting on me. And I did. I crossed paths with her on the way out. It was all fine. And she had some mental challenges. I could tell that a little bit. And as soon as she caught me, she said, can you give me a ride home? And so I looked at Troy, and I said, yeah, I did. You were standing out there, outside. I looked at him, then I looked back at her, and I said, excuses. Like I said, I'm just being real here. I have car seats to move, and I said, and we can give her, I looked at Troy, and I said, and I think we can give you, a ride. And so she was like, that would be so helpful, And so we got in the car, I did the thing. Well, she headed off on a phone, ranting and raving in the air to someone, and so then I hollered at her as we parked into the stall, and I said, ma'am, do you still want to ride home? And she's, was jibber-jabbing about being upset about something, and she said, it's only a few blocks, that would be great. And so she got in, and it was fine, we had a little conversation, but my question for Colleen and those that say they are mercy givers is, would you instinctively, immediately, as soon as you crossed paths with her, said, I can help you? And what can I do for you? Let's go do this. Versus me running this game in my head, kind of trying to avoid it in a way.
I think you should run the game because it's okay to worry or question anybody's true needs and maybe if even nefarious ones. It's perfect that your husband was with you, because I would normally redirect them to maybe the front desk if I was alone. Even in these days, I would probably not pick somebody up on the side of the road unless they were damaged, and I would probably then call an ambulance. But go ahead and let those, because that protects you. And you may think it's maybe you being worried, but I think that's working. The Spirit is allowing you to question what's truly going on. So I run a split second, but I question almost everything.
Colleen?
And Tracy, I can say I would have helped. I was pulling into Walmart across from where the urgent care is, right across from Walmart. Mm-hmm. And there was a very elderly man and a woman. She had a walker. They were down in the ditch. They could not get out of the ditch. Everybody was driving past them. And I made people angry because I pulled over and I had to get out of the way. I went down and walked them over to the urgent care, and I waited to see if they needed a ride home. Now, did I think these people were going to attack me? I don't think, I mean, they couldn't even walk hardly. And this lady had fallen in the bank. I don't know which bank, and they didn't do anything. They had to walk from wherever they were at, and they caught a bus and then got to Walmart. I don't know, it was very strange, and I felt bad that no one, now people might have been going by saying, oh, I wish I could help, I wish I could help. Then stop and help. And I can say I've helped more people out of the bathroom, Tracy, than, you know, they're crippled, they have trouble getting up. There's, you know, I may need that help someday.
So again, that attentiveness to someone going through a difficult time, but then taking that next step to actually jump in and help them. Yes, Brian?
Yes, Hans's statement about pulling over to pick up somebody by the side of the road kind of reminded me of that old joke about, you know, the person that pulled over to pick up somebody by the side of the road, and the guy that was picked up said, you know, golly gee, you know, I'm glad you actually stopped to pick me up because, you know, I figured you were scared I was going to be an axe murderer or something. And the driver said, oh, nonsense. There's no chances that there's going to be, you know, 2 axe murderers in the same car at the same time. But the question that I've got is, and I try to do this myself. It's something that I really work on to try and push my boundaries. But when you are beginning an encounter with someone like that, where are your boundaries? How do you draw your boundaries? Do you set your boundaries before you go in? Do you set them or do you not even know they're there until, you know, like with Tracy, you suddenly bump into them and you say, oh, hello, boundary. Mm-hmm. So, you know, for me, I try to set them going in, you know, what I'm prepared to do, what I'm not prepared to do, you know, what might be a little bit too risky, not only for me, but for my family as well. So, you know, and I realize that's a big honking can of night crawlers I just opened, but just kind of was wondering about that.
Interesting. Either of you have a response to that, or how do you know your boundaries? Do you set them ahead of time? Do you just figure them out as you go?
Yes.
Okay.
You do both. You set boundaries, and boundaries are usually set so that for the most part you're protected, but then you break those boundaries every so
Case by
often.
case.
Yeah, especially in the situation if somebody has a physical need or even emotional.
And I assume that comes with like experience as well.
Yes.
Okay. So what are some things you've learned about using your gift effectively? Here, I'll throw the next several questions on there. So, general statement, or general question, but.
He's asking you.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
what are some things you've learned about using your gift effectively?
I don't know how to answer that. Effectively, I guess, with the patients and getting the people to the urgent care. I don't even know now what I was going to say. You handed this to me, and I was sitting here thinking.
That's fine.
Now, ask it again, because had all these things going through me.
Yeah. So I guess maybe, I'm trying to think of a different way of wording it, but so what are some things you've learned about using your gift effectively? How have you, it kind of ties into this next one, like what are some pitfalls you've encountered? So maybe as you've, like now compared to when you were younger, what are some things that you're better at doing in your gift than you would have been 10, 15, 20 years ago?
I don't think that it's any different. Now, pitfalls. There are pitfalls. When you're out on the road, I was on I-80, and they go so fast on that road. And there was someone pulled over, and I slowed way down, and it looked like this young lady had locked her phone in her car at the side of the road. And I really didn't feel like I could stop. And so you're going, what do? I don't want to leave this lady. Who knows who's going to come along? I dialed 911, and they did not feel like it was an emergency. But I told them that she was on the side of the road, and I thought she needed some help. And I didn't know what else to do. I guess I could have turned around and gone back, but I didn't. I called 911 instead because I wasn't sure. And who knows, maybe it was a trick to get me in, I didn't really think that, but she looked like she was distressed. And sometimes it makes you late, the pitfalls, and you get sometimes too involved. That's some of the pitfalls. That sounds
Gotcha, yeah.
terrible.
No, it makes sense.
But at church camp, with those older girls, I got so involved with those girls. And we had them year after year as they were growing up, and they had problems. And we just helped as much as we could because we felt. And we wanted to understand what they were going through and see how we could help. And Mike had even agreed at one time to take one in for her senior year because her home life was so bad.
Gotcha. So last question, we have a couple hands in the air. The last question is going to be, what's one thing you want other people to know? But
I'll be quick.
Sure.
Since I have the stick. Anybody who's pulled out of either Home Depot or Menards and turned maybe onto McCall, been behind a truck that didn't think they wanted to strap something down, they start off at dumps. You'd be surprised how many men and women stop their cars, make the blockade. Somebody's already got cars going around, and we help that person get that load back into their truck. And that is another way of reaching out to help somebody and prevent an accident. And some people would just say, but God did that. Whether or not they know they were used, God did that.
Fred.
I guess I'm still hung up on a couple of issues, but one is, I just did a little arithmetic, and in a group this size, there should be 6 or 7 people with the gift of mercy. And
On average.
you've only heard from
2
or 3 people who think maybe they do or do know that they do. But I'm not a stop on the side of the road guy, and that's what Jesus' example was. But I do seek out opportunities to help people who need, and for instance, go back to what everybody knows, we deliver Meals on Wheels 3 days a week. We actually have more days a week than anybody else does, and we actually have the biggest route. Nevertheless, we know that those people will go hungry, some of them, if we don't bring them a meal. I think there are maybe people here who have a gift like that, which is different than being willing to stop on the side of the road to help somebody who's in acute difficulty. And maybe there should be some self-reflection on the part of some of the folks here about maybe you have this gift and you just express it differently than most of the examples that have been given today.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yep. David.
I just had a whole bunch of stuff go through my head, and now it's all gone. So if this is a spiritual gift, charismata, literally a gift of grace, it's a God thing. It has nothing to do with you. And I think through Scripture we see that there are, it doesn't say this explicitly, but it gives us the example that there are gifts that are permanent and gifts that just kind of show up when you need them. And that's kind of where I fall on the gift of mercy thing. It's incredible how much God will guide you through that situation when you need it. It has absolutely nothing to do with you. If it's a dangerous situation, God will let you know in some way. All these examples we've gotten, it's like what Hans was saying, you kind of shift when you need to from your principles. That's God letting you know that there's something going on, you probably want to, handle it differently or get out of there or whatever it is. But when you're in situations like this, just listen for God and follow your instincts, because that's how it's going to come out in the way God intends for it to.
Thank you. Kathy?
What David was talking about was really pertinent, because you have to look at what Jesus would look at and how you are going to serve him. And whenever you use your gift, it's like, how is that going to glorify God? And are you walking in the way that Jesus would want you to walk?
All right, Colleen.
Well, we've been here 4 years, and I can say that I think that everybody in this room are mercy givers. They may not be as willing to speak out as I am, because I always seem to have something to say, but I know that they are, because I've seen it in them. Some maybe you do it very quietly, and some people I don't know as well in here, but there are so many that just aren't maybe as willing to speak out about them. And I will say one of my pitfalls is I'm almost too giving. I've had people tell me that, and it is a pitfall sometimes. I get too involved with some of those things. I don't know, too involved, but.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if this actually counts.
Hey, Mike.
Come on, Mike, move. I'm not sure if this actually counts, but one thing that I specifically am, and for those of you that have not ever heard it before, I'll explain it, but have you ever heard of a high responder? It's a term that one of the folks that I train with uses to describe people who aren't necessarily professional caregivers or professional responders like, EMS or police, and I was actually an EMT, a ways back, but if I come across something, like a collision or somebody in a ditch or something like that, and it's obvious that there's, no danger there, at least the people aren't in danger, I'm usually out the car with my trauma kit, and halfway down the road before my brain even catches up with me. It's an instinctual thing. So, that's kind of where my home base with this is, and I've been, trying to work through it and expand this, the circumstances where I'm willing to actually engage like that. But, what was it? Oh, probably, it was several years ago, but my wife and daughter and I were out driving down the road. It was a busy, 4-lane kind of almost like Fort Riley Boulevard is here in Manhattan, and it was a spring day, and the motorcyclists had all flocked out to play, and one guy, popped a wheelie on a sport bike and went over backwards, and I literally, the next thing I knew, I was 3 cars down the road and accelerating after having told my wife, to call 911. And he'd actually cracked the block on his bike, so he wasn't riding out of there. So he was going to have an uncomfortable discussion with law enforcement in about 10 or 15 minutes, but at least he was okay. I was able to go ahead and, give him a once over. Okay, you got a little bit of road rash, you're gonna live. But that, I don't know if you would call that an act of mercy, because it's not at some point actively conscious, but, it's at least kind of in the same room.
Gotcha. Okay, Aaron, then Wade, and then we have to move on because we only got about 5 minutes left. So go ahead, Aaron.
Okay, 2 things. So one, to the question of getting too involved. We talked about one of these verses, but I'll read the whole thought. 2 Corinthians chapter 1, beginning in verse 3. Blessed be God, even the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of mercies and the God of all comfort, who comforteth us in all our tribulation, that we may be able to comfort them which are in any trouble by the comfort wherewith we ourselves are comforted of God. For as the sufferings of Christ abound in us, so our consolation also aboundeth by Christ. And whether we be afflicted, it is for your consolation and salvation, which is effectual in the enduring of the same sufferings which we also suffer, or whether we be comforted, it is for your consolation and salvation. And our hope of you is steadfast, knowing that as ye are partakers of the sufferings, so shall ye be also of the consolation. When we feel like we're getting too involved, we're using up too much of ourselves, I think part of the problem is we are trying to rely too much on ourselves, and we're not realizing that in many cases we're instruments, we're conduits for God. And that doesn't take away anything from our own agency. Ask me later why that's true. But it does mean that we forget whose we are and who we are and on whose behalf we are acting. So I struggle with the question of, am I caring too much? No, I don't think you are. I just don't think you're letting Jesus care through you enough. Second thing, on the question of stopping and helping people that you see, go back through and read the Gospels. Pay attention to what Jesus does and count the number of times these three scenarios happen. 1, Jesus attends to the people around him and he acts mercifully or compassionately. 2, somebody petitions Jesus for mercy and he refuses them. And 3, the number of times somebody petitions Jesus for mercy and he responds with mercy. And that'll give you your answer as to how you respond when you see somebody in need. And it's not a close comparison. I'll give you that hint.
Wait.
I know I've mentioned this before, but in my particular line of work, I deal with the public quite a bit, and so I have plenty of opportunities to be a mercy giver. And I did take the test, and I was surprised. Mercy giving for me is way low. And I thought that's kind of interesting because I have plenty of opportunities to help people, figure out where they're going, which bus they need to get on, helping them in that way. Or if they get on it, I don't have enough money for the rest. Go ahead, come on, I'll get you to where you need to go. Because I feel that if I show a little bit of mercy to them, helping them, not only do I feel good about helping them, hopefully that makes them feel like, hey, somebody actually cares about me. Somebody is helping me out, and it may be like a pay it forward type of deal where then they may see that opportunity to show mercy to someone, and then it just continues on. I don't know if that ever does happen, but for me, it did take a little bit of work. When I first started, there's certain guidelines, certain rules that I did have to follow that were put out by the companies. So sometimes I have to say, no, I'm sorry, you got to pay the fare or whatever. But I also got a little card that says, I have the authority to appropriately bend the rules. So I'm like, I'm going to start carrying that with me now from now on.
Say, can I have a copy of it?
And that has helped me because, sometimes somebody, like I said, sometimes they need that little extra hand of help just so that they can get somewhere. One of our routes goes right by Be Able, and there's plenty of people that I know that get off at the stop, and that's where they're headed is to get there. And I have people ask me all the time, well, how do I get to, I'm trying to get here. Is this the right bus? And then I help them. Even when I'm not even driving, if I'm just wearing my uniform, I've had people stop me and say, oh, hey, how does the bus work? What bus do I need to get to such and such? And I'm like, oh, yeah, no problem. I can help you with that. Even if I only have a limited time to get somewhere, I'll still stop and help them out because I figure if I were in the same situation, I'd want somebody to help me. And sometimes that's all they're looking for, just a little bit of help, somebody to show that they're actually caring about you, and that can make a world of difference.
Yep. All right, thank you. Okay, so real quick, we're going to go through some ideas for action. So I always like the first one because it's like, start using your gift. So seek out those who are, seek out and comfort the lonely and forgotten in the congregation. So maybe just start small and spread out. Brian kind of was alluding to that earlier. So find people in this congregation who might need help. And then also it helps individuals stay in Christ instead of falling away. Next. So something you can do is start a ministry. So for instance, these are all just ideas again, to help battered women or children. So people who are going through a really difficult time. The important part of starting a ministry, no matter what your gift is, again, I alluded to the fact that all of us want to be merciful, all of us want to do these things, but if you have the unique gift for seeing it and can start something, then everyone else can get involved in that. So you can help other people to be mercy givers by starting a ministry, but it was just your impetus that started it. Another idea, take a foreign mission trip to a foreign country, to a poor country. So I've said before, I've been to, really poor country several times, and the opportunities for connection to people who are in need are almost overwhelming. And so again, and it's a structured way, and it's a short period of time. So if you're looking for a way to get started in this would be a good opportunity. Start a letter writing ministry to prisoners. We've talked before about how it's probably fairly lonely and being forgotten if you are a prisoner. So you can be someone who reaches out to people who again, are overlooked and forgotten. Spend time helping terminally ill patients. So people in this situation, I would imagine, are pretty scared and pretty stressed out. So this is a time where you can use your unique skills to help comfort those who are going through a difficult time. Similar concept, nursing homes and hospitals, volunteer in a pregnancy center for troubled teens, or maybe a rehab facility, something like that. So again, using your powers of forgiveness, where other people might say, people pass a lot of judgment on people in these types of situations. So be the person who doesn't do that and instead provides forgiveness to them and helping them out, instead of again saying, well, you got yourself in this problem, you're just gonna have to deal with it. Set up a clothing drive. So then this is something where, clothes can be donated to Goodwill, to a homeless shelter. You can give them out as needed. But the point is, start something where other people can provide some of the resources for you that you can use to go help others. It probably sounds weird saying it this way, donate to ministries or organizations that provide animals to families in poverty. So there are organizations that provide like a cow or a goat, and so you can choose like the family that it goes to. And so then that provides them an opportunity for a sustainable thing. So they can use the milk obviously for themselves, but then they can start selling that to other people and get more money from that. And it's something that can happen continually, as opposed to just giving them, some rice or some, type of grain, something that will just be consumed. Offer to attend appointments with people who don't have family or friends close by. Brian is similar to you said trauma kit. It's not quite the same, but create something ahead of time. So maybe it is something full of like water, socks, gift cards, non-perishable food items, other things that might be helpful. So when you run across that person standing there with a sign, you can say, hey, I have something for you. Here you go. You already have it prepared ahead of time and able to give out to other people. So that is it for our class this morning. We will get to the other areas at a later time. So thank you everyone for your contributions, especially thank you for Colleen and Hans for your contribution today.